From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line on this Thursday. A good show on tap for you. We'll open up the phone lines as we go along, but periodically, as you know, on this program, we revisit the issue of domestic violence, okay? It's not just for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It should be every month of the year to talk about not only the problem and dealing with it, but the help that's out there for so many people. And that's something I want to throw out right off the top here. That's where we can help you this morning. If you want to call in and join in the conversation, point you in the right direction. If you or someone you love or a friend is involved in a bad situation, hey, there is help on a lot of different levels. And this morning, what makes it interesting, it's one of the very largest organizations in the country, and it's very involved with so many things with our veterans. But domestic violence as well, something I didn't know about. And we're going to talk about that and the services they provide and how they can maybe help a broad range of viewers out there right now. So join us for this, as there's not really a more important topic than sex abuse, but domestic violence and those types of things in society today. Joining us this morning to talk about it, and it's a heavy subject first thing in the morning, but we're going to get into it with Lisa Hallum. And Lisa, let me say, this is a mouthful. You are the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program Supervising Coordinator with the VA out of Murfreesboro. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, then. And it is interesting. You know, I was not aware of the fact, I guess if you had asked me, I'd say, well, they probably help with that. But the VA, domestic violence, has an entire, I guess, team that works this.
Yes, we have our own program.
Is it? How long have you had it? All along?
Actually, we've been having services for intimate partner violence for about 6 years.
Okay,
but
so
it didn't officially become the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program until 2019.
So it's relatively new, at least concerning the VA.
And there's a lot of room to grow.
So first, tell me then. I mean, there had to be a reason that they decided to add something like this. I mean, was there just more cases coming up and they're like, well, what are we going to do to help these people?
What the VA found, what we have found like in Tennessee Valley, is that veterans are twice as likely to engage in intimate partner violence.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because of the prevalence of post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, and depression.
Sure, sure.
And so we have found in working with veterans in mental health that there is a report, you know, of a lot of relationship conflict, a lot of increased stress. A lot of these veterans have had multiple deployments, and so that adds to the relationship stress.
Just financial stress when they come back to get jobs.
They can have financial stress because when they come back from deployment, and also when they get out of the military, they have a lot of difficulty adjusting to normal life, to civilian life. So there's a lot of isolation there, and then that places a lot of stress on the family.
Okay, and we've heard that time and again, but
yes,
you didn't think about the VA and, you know, this issue. So how does a concerning case come to your attention? Is it something that's reported by whom? It's
reported by any healthcare provider at the VA or a mental health provider.
Now, would that be then, let's just say it is the veteran who is doing the abusing because of the stress, and it's a spouse perhaps. So would it be the spouse that comes forward? The veteran himself or herself would not necessarily report that. So
no. So hopefully the intimate partner or the spouse will contact someone at the VA to request help for it. We have a caregiver support program, so social workers are highly involved with the spouses, with the caregivers or the intimate partners, and so they can report it to the social worker that way.
And so that would be, they could do that. Sometimes, as you well know, depending on how it escalates, law enforcement becomes involved. So it can sometimes happen either, you know, as you just described, does it sometimes come from law enforcement as well? Because usually at that point then you're looking at maybe someone being arrested for assault.
Yes, I mean, we can get information from law enforcement. And some of our veterans are in a veterans treatment court, where they have to attend an anger management program. And we do have a Strength at Home users program. We don't call those who abuse or offend, we don't call them abusers or offenders because it does have a stigmatizing name to it. So we try to keep it as users of violence.
Okay.
And then those who experience violence, or those who are normally called victims, we don't want to stigmatize them by that label.
Okay.
So we call it experiencers.
And they're
violence.
experiencing the violence.
Right, exactly. Because we have a trauma-informed approach at Tennessee Valley, where we don't want to re-victimize users or experiencers of intimate partner violence or sexual assault, because a lot of times they have already been traumatized in the past, either by the abuse they've just experienced or maybe prior abuse.
Right.
So we really want to have that trauma-informed approach.
Okay, and so once you get hold of a situation like that, how is it then that you begin the process of helping? The referral is made, you've maybe made contact with the experiencer, and then you then reach out, and how do you get the person in to start dealing with therapy?
Well, we speak with them on the phone, and we let them know about our services.
Now, are they usually maybe not all that willing to listen?
They may not be, but sometimes they are willing to, and so we try to involve them in the Strength at Home users group and see if they would be willing to do that. We've also got a great behavioral health program, which I used to work in behavioral health, so I saw firsthand some of the problems that couples are having. And so we refer to the behavioral health program, and there's all sorts of programs at the VA that can provide assistance. And then also we utilize the community resources as well to assist veterans and their intimate partners.
I would think if law enforcement came involved, or a judge did, and they saw the situation, could they refer them and say, listen, you're going through this, we're going to deal with this situation as it stands, but I want you, and I'm telling you, you can either go to jail or you can go to the VA and get in this user group.
Right.
I mean, can that happen?
Yes. That happens a lot.
Okay, and
we have a lot of court-ordered veterans.
Sometimes that's what it takes,
that
and hopefully
do come to that group.
The veterans get in there, and then they all of a sudden say, "Well, I can get better."
Right.
What is a user group like? Is it a round table where these users, maybe veterans, share, or how does that work? Have you sat in on one of those?
I have not sat in on one of those, but I am going to get trained to run that group. But it is an intervention group where veterans are. It's a virtual group right now because of COVID.
Sure.
But they learn techniques to deal with their anger. They learn how to communicate their feelings, because a lot of times people keep their feelings in and their emotions in, and they don't express them, and they don't express something they don't like, and they're not assertive. So it's facilitating the group and teaching the veterans how to be more assertive rather than being aggressive.
Right.
And not keeping their feelings in, but expressing them and being open.
Obviously domestic abuse is widespread across all realms, But do you think, I would imagine, the veterans that end up engaging in this, it's because of their background and what they've been through and where they are, which there's no excusing abuse, period. I don't care what your background was. I'm sorry, I'm not going to excuse it. But there can be a better explanation for why they do, and maybe a different way of treating them than others, you think?
Yeah, because of, veterans who most of them have experienced combat and have had multiple deployments. We do have to take a different approach because we have to consider PTSD,
what they've been through there,
post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, and how that impacts their brain and how it impacts them mentally and emotionally, and the impulsiveness that comes with that. And really educating the veterans about how that impacts them in relationships and how that plays into their aggression and their impulsiveness. And teaching them techniques on how to take those timeouts and to use relaxation skills that will help them calm down.
Is there sometimes a substance abuse component too?
Oh yes, we see that a lot. A lot of substance abuse is usually involved in intimate partner violence.
If they have PTSD
and sexual assault,
and they're self-medicating, then that just escalates the situation more.
Right, it does.
So in those cases, you have to deal twofold with both of that. But the whole idea, I guess you hit on it. It's like, okay, we can talk about this, but you were good in touching on what you teach them: timeouts, meditation, back away. And I would also think maybe do you work with the not the victim, the experiencer to recognize some of these things when it's escalating and maybe try to de-escalate it? I don't know.
Yes. What we're gonna start doing in the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program is we're gonna start couples safety planning.
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought that up so I could talk about that.
How does that work? Because that makes sense.
Well, it's very important. So if a mental health provider is seeing a veteran and the veteran tells the provider, I'm having issues with my spouse. I actually punched the wall the other day during an argument. That is a cue to that mental health provider to refer that couple to the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program. And also, we're going to be training the mental health providers on how to do couple safety planning themselves. And what that looks like is having 2 or 3 sessions with the couple, and it's not couples therapy, it's safety planning intervention. So you're getting each party to talk about the tension builders that they're experiencing, the anger triggers that they have, and then knowing when to take the timeouts, how long the timeouts are going to be, where they're going to go during the timeouts, and the rules of timeout are very important. So having a tool like that for them to use can prevent the violence from escalating.
I mean, that's what you have to do, I would think. So it could be everything from taking a time out or saying, listen, we need to get away from each other for a moment.
Right.
Let's just stop whatever it is at that moment we're arguing about.
Right.
Okay? And it may not be resolved, but I can tell this is getting more heated, okay? We just have to stop this right now.
Exactly.
Now, both sides have to kind of agree,
they have to agree to it.
And that's just tricky.
That's why it's important to do it as a couple so that they're both buying into it. And part of that is going to be education about intimate partner violence. So you want to start out couple safety planning with education on it. But so some couples don't even know they're engaging in intimate partner violence. So it's important for them to understand what it is and the different forms of violence, and then knowing when to take that time out. And usually it's in the tension building phase that we encourage them to take a time out, because when the anger triggers occur,
it's too late.
It can be too late, but I always tell couples it's never too late to take a time out.
Okay.
But the tension building phase is where you want to take that time out so that they can cool down for an hour, 30 minutes, however long it takes, and then come back together and talk about what happened, talk about the issue. Okay, so when you say that some couples may not even be aware they're in a situation like that, and again, if you know, couples can be arguing and yelling at each other, and you know, that's normal, I'm sorry. I mean, that's okay. So where does it cross the line? It crosses the line when it becomes verbal violence, where it's name-calling, insulting, threatening, intimidating, bullying type behavior. It can definitely be abuse, even if you're not physically making contact. Exactly, and that's a lot of what we see. It can be mental abuse. And that's a lot of what we see, really, is the verbal violence. And sometimes that can be just as damaging as the physical violence. But you know, it crosses the line then when they're destroying property. When they start putting their hands on each other, you know, the unwanted touching, that's crossing the line, and there's definitely needs to be intervention. And I'm glad you brought up when does it cross the line, because there is a cycle of violence that I think is very important for me to talk about. And I hope your viewers might recognize this cycle, because some of them may be experiencing it in their relationship. But it starts out as the tension building phase, and then it goes to the explosion phase, and then the honeymoon peacemaking phase. We've heard that cycle. I mean, that's the age-old one, the makeup afterwards, saying, oh, it'll never happen again, I lost my cool. Exactly, the apologies, gifts may be given, and of course the explosion phase is when the verbal violence or the physical violence occurs. But what happens is, the reason we call it a cycle is because it keeps going. So even after the honeymoon phase, a period of time might go where they're getting along okay, but then the tension building phase starts all over again. And then you have the explosion, and then the honeymoon phase again. But if the couple does not get professional help and intervention to help them deal with the violence that's going on in their relationship, the violence normally escalates to a more severe level over time, and can become so violent where it causes severe injury or death. Yes, people have been killed. And that's why it's so important for couples to get help when they are experiencing this cycle of violence.
and we've got a lot we're going to cover, as well as some of the services out there as well. When we come back, we just want to talk about just how many people you actually see now. You said it's become official with the title since 2019, did you say? So still relatively new, but boy, you know a lot of people need help on this front. We'll take a break. Lisa Hallum will be with us. We can take some calls. If you're in a situation like this, feel free to join in the conversation. We can take calls even if you're not involved with the VA this morning, because she obviously knows what she's talking about. We'll be back with more of our discussion on domestic violence right after this. Stay with us.